Welcome to Morgan's Game Therapy, a channel where you listen to a random stranger on the internet talk about TTRPGs and give unsolicited advice on problems that don't concern me. I hope your day-night weekend is going well, and I hope you enjoy the video. This will be a bit of a shorter one. It's not the video I had planned to upload next, but I stumbled across this rant on Reddit that struck something in me. I just had to talk about it. As always, everything in this video is purely my opinion. This isn't meant to call out the OP of the post. This is a rant that's just an example of an experience a good number of people I know have, and probably a good number of people that I don't know have. Let me know in the comments if you've had a thought like this. I recently made an Oath of Vengeance Paladin for a new campaign starting at level 6, and did a few sessions in. While I like how my character plays mechanically, I'm finding it a bit difficult to roleplay and still adhere to what paladins are presented as in official material. The character I imagined is basically a questing knight who travels the land slaying monsters. The Vengeance Paladin mechanics seem fitting for a monster slayer / witch hunter type character, which is why I picked it. While my character is motivated by vengeance part of his backstory, he's equally motivated by obtaining wealth, glory, and status, both for him and his kingdom. Roleplay-wise, he would be basically a combination of vengeance, crown, and glory, with some sellslord mercenary flavor on top. However, with the way paladins are written in the PBH, it makes it seem like I can't play this character. Raw, my oath is the defining part of my character's motivation, goals, and even personality. I also objectively can only pick one oath. In addition, paladins are implied to be wholly altruistic, selfless justice seekers, which is just not the character I wanted to play. If I am actually strictly adhering to my oath, it makes it feels like I'm role-playing in a straitjacket. It makes my character feel one-dimensional and like I can't give him complexity and nuance. Especially since the implication is that if I don't act in 100% accordance with the oath, that I would have to do penance or lose my paladin abilities. The idea of a class being so strictly predetermined in terms of roleplay really chafes on me. It makes me not sure if I even want to be playing a paladin. The way I see it, I basically have two options. Ask my DM if I can ignore the oath, which the DM would probably be okay with, or switch classes to fighter. Okay, let's discuss. This hit me pretty hard for two reasons. First, I love paladins. My very first character was a somewhat modified Vengeance Paladin, very angry tiefling with a big flaming sword that wanted to kill devils and demons because her Baylor father destroyed the village when she was young. Since then, I consider myself a paladin main, as much as you can main anything in D&D. The fact that someone has issues with the class alone makes me sad, as does the fact that someone might want to change to a fighter because of what I consider to be a non-issue. Paladins are great. They combine magic and frontline support, they have healing, they can smite things, they're just cool, objectively 100%. They have decent charisma, they can be the face, you don't have a bard, sorcerer, something. I'm also told by my more optimization-inclined friends that it's considered one-off, if not the strongest class in the game. I mean, I can't really comment on that, I just like them because they're cool and smites. There are plenty of people who like the theme of Paladin or like their abilities and pick it purely based on that. The second reason that this story caught my eye is that, unlike the OP of this rant, I actually really enjoy the oath aspect of the Paladin. However, I've had a recent incident with one of my players who also hated the oath aspect for a very similar reason to the OP. He felt it confined his actions to a very narrow margin and constantly threatened him with loss of power, which was a big no-no to his hero fantasy and kind of took away the reason he played D&D in the first place, which was to feel powerful. Here's my issue with all of that. That's not actually what the oath is there for. At least I don't believe that the intention was to limit people's roleplay potential or choices. For starters, I disagree with the notion that all paladins have to be righteous, selfless, or even good. Sure, that's the easiest image that comes to mind. Maybe that was the initial idea for a knight in shining armor. But that's mostly for classes like Devotion or Oath of the Ancients. But then there's also oaths that heavily lean on darker themes like Oath of Conquest. Let's look at its tenets. Douse the flame of hope. It is not enough to merely defeat an enemy in battle. Your victory must be so overwhelming that your enemy's will to fight is shattered forever. A blade can end a life. Fear can end an empire. Rule with an iron fist. Once you have conquered, tolerate no dissent. Your word is law. Those who obey it shall be favored. Those who defy it shall be punished as an example to all those that might follow. And strength above all. You shall rule until a stronger one arises. Then you must grow mightier and meet the challenge or fall to your own ruin. Does any of that sound like a selfless good person? It can be spun that way, sure, but it doesn't bring to mind the image of what people for some reason think paladins are supposed to be. I think it's an antiquated belief to think that paladins all have to be righteous, holy warriors. Perhaps in older generations of D&D or in systems where alignment is a bigger issue like Pathfinder, but in 5e specifically, it doesn't have to be the case. I don't think it's had to be the case for a very long time now. At the end of the day, your paladin is a person. And just like any person, they can be complex and multifaceted. This means that their relationship with their oath is also complex and multifaceted. Sometimes it fits squarely into it, sometimes their belief in certain aspects sways and falters. That's part of the character, and that's fine. Furthermore, remember that the oath isn't actually written anywhere. It's an internal set of values and principles that your character holds and that they draw strength from. By Raw, which states that paladins are divine champions, these values are so strong that a divine power notices and rewards you with abilities. But, unlike clerics, the power still comes initially from within. If you really break it down, the only thing your character needs to be a paladin is a deep-rooted belief or purpose that they're not willing to compromise on. That's their oath. And if it doesn't exactly state what's written in the player's guide, I don't see how that's a problem. There might be DMs that are concerned about that, but that's more of a DM personal belief. And your oath isn't all of your character. Like I said before, your character is complex, so naturally they would have other desires aside from the oath they took. For example, my tiefling paladin was obsessive in her search for vengeance against all devils, but she also had a soft spot for kids and formed strong bonds with her party members despite being a bit of an arse to them. Sometimes these other ideas, these other thoughts and desires and aspects of your character put you at odds with your oath, which is where some great role-playing comes in, as we'll discuss later. In a specific case of the Reddit rant, the OP wants to play a Vengeance Paladin that also desires wealth, glory, and status. But nothing in his oath, or I don't think any oath for that matter, specifically prevents him from doing that. Just as anyone can be greedy and selfish but still do good simply because it benefits them, a paladin can do pretty much anything that doesn't directly violate their oath, which in most cases is blatant murder. As a last thing for this section, I will say that the only direct way to break almost any oath that I can think of is to be entirely self-serving and a bit of a bastard. If you're planning on playing a character like that, then yes, having an oath will get in the way. If you just want to play a chaotic evil murder hobo that just murders everyone for no reason. But that playstyle will also not fit with a large number of TTRPG tables in general, since it's hard to play a cooperative game with a character that's entirely selfish and kind of an arse. So for most characters, I don't think it's an issue to have an oath. Sometimes it feels like people spend so much time fighting their oath that they forget how useful the oath can be for storytelling. For starters, there's nothing wrong with chafing, quote-unquote, against your oath now and then. It creates character conflict and character growth as a result. Consider any character that goes adventuring to help people. A good person that is faced with a situation where they have no good choices, and whatever they choose, someone dies. The classic trolley problem comes to mind, right? Or a situation in which a greedy, selfish person that finally made a friend having to choose between enough money to set them for life and that very friend they had just made and opened their heart to. Would that not make for a great story? Now consider these same situations, but with an added deep-rooted belief that is so intense that even the divine noticed it. Because that's what an oath is at the end of the day. How would the character proceed in the situation, given how dedicated they are to their purpose? Would they choose to stick to their oath? Would their mindset change? How would that affect their oath their outlook on their oath, and their mission in life as a whole. These are valuable questions that guide the development of your character. Your oath is a narrative consequences the same way a warlock's patron is. And just as I am opposed to letting someone play a warlock with no ties to a patron, playing a paladin that ignores their oath is wild to me, to be honest. Not because I want to control the way you roleplay, but because you can't expect to have power and not have narrative consequences of some kind. All classes have them, even fighters and rangers. And to try and dodge that, to me, defeats the point of D&D, or in fact any TTRPG. And this is exactly what I told my friend and a player in one of my games when he wanted to play a Paladin Warlock multiclass without being tied to an oath or a patron. He argued that he didn't want to be restricted or tied to something that could take his power away at any moment because his actions were deemed good enough. It wasn't part of his hero fantasy. It nullified the point of why he was playing D&D. And that's valid. We all play for a purpose, and some people's purpose is to feel more powerful and heroic than they feel in their everyday life. At first, though, I was affronted by this. I enjoy Warlock patrons and Paladin oaths because they are a tie-in to the wider universe and a way for the DM to give you information or to generally tug you in the right direction. Like I said, narrative consequences. The story can't be built without them. I told my friend this, but I also said that he can have the character he wants if he manages to work with me to flavor it accordingly. If he gives me another source of narrative consequences that I can use to add drama to the story. And this is what we came up with. Let me know in the comments if you like this idea. He plays a Paladin Warlock, mechanically. However, in-universe, his character is a Divine Soul Sorcerer, flavor-wise, who was kidnapped by an evil entity that experimented on him, twisting his divine magic into something different, something both divine and sinister. As a result, he lost the casting ability innate to sorcerers and gained greater fighting prowess, able to call upon divine radiance to smite enemies. At the same time, he was imbued with the entity's darker energies, tying them forever in a very warlocky manner. Now on the run from this entity, the character is constantly hunted by its minions and has to come to terms with the trauma he went through while imprisoned. See? It manages to give an in-the-universe explanation to the abilities that the character has while giving the player exactly what he wants, and still having the narrative and roleplay consequences that the Paladin Oath is, in my opinion, intended to give. So, long story short, do not discount the Paladin Oath as an inconvenience. It's a great tool for character growth and story progression, and should be seen as such. With a little creativity, it can be interpreted in ways that gives your character more flavor as opposed to taking away role-playing opportunities. At the end of the day, it's the game master that determines how much your oath matters. Is it going to be so loosely interpreted that it might as well not be there? Or will it be like Baldur's Gate 3, where one accidentally misinterpreted dialogue line will still break your oath? I am still salty about that. I recommend a healthy balance of the two. The oaths should have weight. The paladins have great power for a reason, and they shouldn't just get it for free with no narrative consequences if it fell down in their lap and now they're divinely powered. But it shouldn't be so restrictive that the player is too afraid to breathe incorrectly for fear it will break their oath. Talk to your player. Determine together what the oath means for this particular character, how it informs their actions, how closely they hold it to their heart. Most tenets can be interpreted with a certain degree of moral ambiguity, if need be. This is the most important part of any TTRPG campaign, communication between player and DM. DM has final say on how any mechanic actually works in the game. So if you work something out together, there won't be an issue. Interpret things differently, alter things sometimes. You can even do what the OP suggested and just ignore the oath completely, although I still think that's a terrible waste of a very good mechanic. And that's it for my rant. This was fairly short. I hope it was at least a little entertaining, maybe a tiny bit helpful even. Like I said, paladins have a very special place in my heart, and this is just something I felt like really sharing about and just complaining about for a good 20 minutes, so I did. Why not? Thank you all for listening all the way through to the end, and I hope you stick around. Give this video a like if you feel like it. Subscribe if you want to see more. My current plan is to put out 2 videos a week. Let's see if I actually manage to stick to that schedule. Comment if you have feedback, suggestions, or comments on anything I just said. I'd love to have a healthy discussion in the comments if anyone has anything to say about it. Have a good time of day, and I'll catch you all later. Cheerios!